75% of pitchers don't make it to the big leagues, and only like 6% of them get to 200 MLB innings with their parent team.
Total,
before something happens to them. Then only 2% actually become a everyday top 3 starter in the big leagues. So you're taking 1,100 players so far, 2.5%, 3% make it into an everyday starter for the big leagues or the top 3 of the rotation. That's not a lot. Almost 50% of the data sets come in and had an arm injury. It's no longer do I make it there, but it's how can I sustain it? The structure of what it means to be a starting pitcher, how that's built now, has changed.
All right, so we're joined today by Justin Orenduff. I feel like there are so many various things I could say about you as we get started here. But for the audience, so Justin, you were a first-round pick, right? Before that, you played baseball at, It sounds like 2 places, but which one do you claim?
VCU.
VCU, yeah. Okay, got it. Makes
Ram
sense.
At heart.
Yeah, makes sense. But I want to get into your journey, your path. I feel like one of the things that you're doing, the reason why it spoke to me and the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is there's obviously so much information out there into the world, right? But there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that's being shared. And so help everybody understand as we kind of jump into this conversation. As a pitcher coming through, you obviously experienced an injury yourself. Did you ever think that this would be the thing that you're doing post-baseball? Like, was this ever on the radar? Like, did you have a passion about this prior to even getting injured, or is that how
it's a great question. I think starting way back when, I think I always consider myself more of an academic-minded student that just happened to realize the talent to throw the ball hard. And I think coming up, I worked hard at it, and that's why I think out of high school, I originally chose George Washington University simply because I could get right into the business school. It was a good fit. It was definitely different from outside of Chesapeake, Virginia, where I grew up. But, out of high school, it was between UVA, William & Mary, and George Washington for me. And I had a great time at GW, learned a lot. But I think how it worked out going to VCU and playing there and having a lot of success in my amateur career, I never really thought that like becoming a first-round pick was on the table. But I think that the expectation that I had was just work hard, continue to put my head down, do right by the classroom, and see what shakes out. And I think, when I got selected to Team USA after my sophomore year, things started to shift a little bit. It was like, oh, well, I might have an opportunity at that next level. But I continued the same journey. I got drafted in the first round, kept that same mentality, was in AA my first, full professional season, had a lot of success. And, I was in 2006 cruising in AA, and Ned Colletti, the GM of the Dodgers at the same time, came in to watch me pitch. The Rays had 3 or 4 big leaguers on assignment, did well. And but at the end of the game, I had felt something pretty deep in my shoulder, and I had started to feel it. And I think for all those pitchers out there, there's always warning signs of like if there's something going on. Now I call it the check elbow light. Just like you drive your car, there's a check engine light. But I knew something was going on. And the next morning, I woke up and I literally could not lift my arm.
Oh, man.
And then, it's like you can always get through some soreness and figure it out. But this was different. And I said, okay. And so 6 weeks later, I still couldn't lift my arm up. And I'd gone out to LA with the console, the Joe Clinic, and you hear slap tear labrum. It's like a career ender at that point. And this is back in 2006. And so I said, well, let's opt for surgery. Rehab's not doing anything for me. And so I think when I woke up from surgery and their surgeon said, Justin, I don't know if you got 6,600 or 6 innings left, but I do know the way that you threw the baseball led to this type of injury and surgery. So I said, ooh, okay, well, what is it about it, the way I threw? But that single phrase that was expressed to me really changed my mindset. And I was in constant search for answers. I call it the second half of my playing career. But then I quickly realized that no matter what I did, I was always going to be fighting an uphill battle. I wasn't as good anymore as I used to be. And it's not for lack of trying or my mindset, all those things, just my arm didn't function the same. And then my results showed. And so after being very frustrated, I retired and went back to school. We got my business degree, VCU. And if you can imagine like one of those like shows like CSI, right? Like a crime scene. I started just with this simple question of, well, why do some pitchers get hurt and others don't? And so this is where I think, to answer your question, I started to look at the history of the game, not a lab, the history of the game of how some pitchers could eclipse an inning threshold, stay healthy, not get hurt. And I really like had a passion for it. And really at the time when I was retiring with the Dodgers, they said, you'd be great for coaching. Claire Ryerson, the scout that drafted me, said, Duff, you should get into scouting. And I started actually shadow him a little bit. But I just say, I don't want to be on the road. I feel like I got this calling and I'm going to kind of figure this out. So that's how it started. And from there, I spent the better part of 4.5 years putting together this kind of way where we could quantify how a pitcher moves and how it relates to injury risk. It was really that simple, but it took me a long time to do it. And I'm not a kinesiologist, I'm not a
Yeah.
biomechanist by trade, but I did play.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw guys that played, and I was in it and I could feel how joint forces and torques were on my body. And, I felt like I was smart enough to interpret this stuff. So I said, well, I don't see anything else there like it. And so let me figure it out. And so luckily, with Duke University and Grant Garrigous and Grant Sutter, some orthopedic surgeons there at the time, they helped me kind of formalize this study that I was doing into the pitch and delivery. And eventually we got it published. So then I think I asked the question of, well, I got all this information. I put it together. I have a huge database of 500. It was 500, active and former MLB pitchers. And I said, well, what next? And that's what led me up to the USPBL in Michigan. And, I think where I sit unique is I played.
Yeah.
And, I didn't get to the big leagues, but that's okay.
It's also part of the story, though. It's like on some level, if you're not hurt, right? I'm assuming Ned was there for a reason,
right?
If you're not hurt, I would make the assumption that you would have been in the big leagues. So on some level, this is part of the story.
It's part of the story, and it's also, I'm not alone in this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys that were talented, worked hard, ate right, went about their business the right way, but for some reason it didn't work out. And we're finding that a lot of this didn't work out scenarios exist because, increasingly in this culture, guys are at younger and younger ages kind of feel the desire or the demand to want to try to perform at a higher level earlier in their careers. And, but as I know, that the foundation on which they're performing is just a little bit less structural or more at risk. And you put more demands on it, it's going to break sooner than later.
So the audience, obviously, these guys are parents of youth baseball and travel baseball players. I think we've all met, and we can. I mean, the number of parents who will do anything and everything to put their kid in the right situation to have success is endless. Speak a little bit about this study that you did. What were the findings in that study?
Well, it started obviously kind of with myself, right? I mean, I think I released a video and I said I would have been a part of the study if I dated it back to 2004. But a few years ago, what I did was I said, let's look at the best arms that come through the draft each year. Eventually, I'll do it internationally as well. But let's look at what happens to them, And so I took the top 3 pitchers drafted and signed each year by every MLB organization since 2013. And that data set is now 1,100 pitchers. And so that's a pretty good data set to see what happens, right? And so I started with that simple, let's look at these players. And what I did was I tracked how many minor league innings they accumulated and how many major league innings they accumulated with the team that drafted them, right? Just to try to keep it simple. Like if they were traded or Rule 5 or release, I just stopped tracking them, right? But if you're making a big investment in a player and it's one of the top 3 pitchers signed, that's probably, has the weight of, we value these guys on better than others, right? So I started there and I didn't really know what I was going to find. And it's just like I did my initial formal study. I don't know, but as I pieced this together, this was 2013 and then you go into 2019 and obviously current, you start to see these patterns that exist, right? And it's all about patterns and, being able to quantify those things. And what the biggest standout was is that 75% of pitchers don't make it to the big leagues, right? Or at
Mhm.
least current. I mean, there's still guys like actively in the data set, right? And only like 6% of them get to 200 MLB innings with their parent team. And then
Total.
total before something happens to them,
Yeah.
right? And then only 2% actually become a everyday top 3 starter in the big leagues. So you're
Wow.
taking 1,100 players so far, 2.5, 3% make it into a everyday starter for the big leagues or the top 3 of the rotation. That's not a lot,
Right.
right? So you're looking at, well, why is that? And part of it is the structure of what it means to be a starting pitcher, how that's built now has changed. And, it's not all like MLB organizations' fault. It's like guys are doing more at younger ages. They're doing more in college, to try to ramp up the opportunity to get drafted. By the time that they land and get this opportunity in Major League Baseball, the pitchers that have had surgery, the college players, it's like 320 innings, 330 innings total, but that includes their college innings.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So the high school pitchers are right around 160. And it's like, well, that's probably about the same amount of time when they get into their professional careers.
Mhm.
So it's like a year and a half. And, it's 25% of the data set. Almost 50% of the data sets can be had an arm injury. So my message to the young pitchers out there is don't be naive. Like, understand that this is a reality of the best pitchers in amateur draft every year, how their careers unfold. But the structure of when they get in, it's no longer do I make it there, but it's how can I sustain it to obviously have a big league career, maybe earn more financial income. And what are those things?
Yeah.
And I think from the last 12, 15 years, the priorities of the training, the industry, it's not reflective back of the previous 50 years, what that entailed.
Yeah, what's interesting is I feel like everybody's kind of been aware, all right, there's a problem, right? And we all can point to the problem and say it's somewhere around here. Like guys are throwing too hard, I know is what a lot of people say. But it's as if nobody can ever not only just diagnose the problem, but then come up with a solution. And that's a little bit about what you're doing. So I want to talk a little bit about that right now. But before I do, part of the biggest challenge I think for a lot of these players is there's two things, and I think I saw a tweet of yours and I completely agreed with it. And the two things that every player is so enamored with is the signing bonus and then getting to the big leagues,
Mhm.
right? So these are the kind of the two driving factors of I just got to throw through it or whatever I can do to just throw as hard as possible to put myself in this position. You had surgery. You then came back from the surgery. And I think I saw that like, were you throwing harder after the surgery than you were before?
I was throwing harder at 35 years old once I learned
How
the
you're,
aspects of the energy and understanding of how it all works and understanding of my body and how it works, right? And so that's part of it is like I think it's easy to gain strength, right? And we can gain strength. We can increase our ability to create power into a throw, and we can convert it, right? And that stuff, that type of formula, so to speak, has kind of been tried and tested for the last 10 years, and that's why we have a lot of guys throwing harder. Problem is that there's really no like consistent language or congruence of like, well, yeah, we can do that, but is it going to be sustainable? Is it actually going to help the pitcher long term? Because
mm,
everything is short sighted,
yeah, of course.
right? And a lot of these programs, it could fit the business model, the training program to validate results for that program, but not necessarily stack up to what the player needs for his journey, for his career.
Hmm.
And so what I did was, yeah, I threw 91, 94 as a professional. Took me 4 years to figure this stuff out. I was a little bit of the guinea pig. And at 35 years old, I could throw the ball harder than I did at any time in my professional career. And it was like, but I never threw a ball when I was doing this over like 90 feet, right? It's like everything was off a mound. And so it's like once you learn how to utilize that slope, which is a weapon, and you understand, I'm trying to throw it in this little box, 60 feet, 6 inches. I want to understand how physics work, bone leverage works. Oof, you can be dangerous. But the building blocks of it are what we're trying to do, right? It's like, hey, do you want to go drive your car fast for a short period of time? Or do you want to drive your car for a long period of time and have the ability to go fast? It's like a
Mm,
total different mindset, but it can be done, right? And my whole point of everything I taught to is baseball has taught us whether it's Nolan Ryan or Bob Gibson or Sandy Koufax, Roger Clemens, like guys can sustain.
Sure.
Verlander, Scherzer, like these guys can sustain, but it's a different mindset growing up. It's like, well, I don't have to ramp it up for every pitch. I don't have somebody on the iPad looking over my shoulder telling me every time I throw a ball what happened. I know what happened.
Mm.
I don't need someone to tell me. And that part of like a self-awareness diagnostic is gone.
Is there like a series of, and this is going to be funny. I say this because I know my listener is saying, well, what are the 5 things that we need to be aware of, right? But is there like a list of a few different things where it's like, look, just to start, here are the things that you at least need to understand, right? Do more research on it. And obviously I want them to be able to understand how they can find more of you and talk about DVS a little bit. But is there a list of a few things that you think these people need to at least be mindful of to start? You said like throwing off a mound is one of them.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll answer your question from this point of view. Everything in our business is built around evaluation. And evaluation is nothing more than a conversation, right? So I have to understand what you know, what you've been doing, and we have to talk, right? And if we don't know, then where are we going to start from? But it's funny because when I start showing them clips of Mariano Rivera not too long ago, like, who's that? This is like 12-year-old guy. Greg Maddux, right? It's like, oh, who was that? Cliff Lee, Mark Burley. And these guys they played like fairly recently. They're not aware. So when you open that mind up, it's like, wait, and then you go even back further. You put in bigger deliveries like a Goose Gossage or a Koufax or a Warren Spahn. They're like, whoa, what do you mean? I can throw a ball like that? It's like, yeah, you can. But they don't know. They never see it. And all of us are, to some level persuaded by our environment, right? It's like if you go to Little League and your team and you have your teammates and your coaches and you never see higher level movement. Well, how would I know it exists? If you don't have MLB Network, if you don't know to go look. So these kids are being, I won't say herded, but like that's just what their environment is. They don't know.
That's right.
So I basically educate through understanding the game, using examples which have been taught and passed down as an educational tool. Because I used to think that, the human body at 10 years old can't do this. Well, I was definitely wrong. I'll take my son. He's 6. He sat on my lap when he was 1, 2, 3, as I was doing analysis of pitchers. He would start to mimic these, deliveries in slow motion. And I was like, I told my wife, I was like, I hope he's not going to not how to throw the ball fast. Cause it's like, I'm constantly doing slow motion stuff. Right. But then when he starts to throw a ball, he's mimicking the patterns that he sees. I didn't tell him to do anything.
Oh, wow.
And so the body is amazing in how it can basically immerse itself and coordinate itself and orient itself. Right. But I think one thing that I would like everyone to understand is there's a reason why if you take the current industry of Japanese pitchers versus American pitchers, well, baseball was brought over there, 50s, 60s, and the throwing, the wind-up style, and they've obviously taken it and branded it as their own. But that discipline, that conviction of repeating the delivery, the time and the tempo, those are big values over there. And when they come over here, they're having success, right? We're losing some of those values at younger ages because we're just chasing the gun, right? So you can see it. And you go look at the pictures of the Japanese Little League World Series, it's the same thing, right? And it's like, well, why is that? That's culture.
Yeah.
Right. And so for here, when we get back to why did the windup go away? Why do those old school pitchers have to kick their leg up and step back and rock back? Well, the mound was high, right? It was probably 18 inches a lot of places. Then it got lowered to 15. Now it's 10. It's like, well, that makes a difference in how I'm standing up on this big peak and I got to throw a ball downhill. But I can't fall over. So I have to naturally step back, wind myself up, get the energy. I don't have to rely upon all this strength because I didn't have weights back then. So they literally wound themselves up, kick their foot up so they're not falling forward to help keep their weight back, and they throw the ball downhill. The mound itself can actually be one of the best preventers, or whatever you want to call it, of arm injuries if you use the momentum right, because it's a natural buildup. It's like a train when it builds momentum, or a roller coaster as it builds its momentum down to the the turn. It's like we can use these tools, but they don't fit the business models again, because it's like, well, that is a training tool. It's like the best free training tool you can get. Go to your little league park, throw off the mound.
Mm.
But kids don't think about it like that. But it's there, and it's still there. But we just have to like get it aware. We have to like work with little leagues to get more kids in their communities to do these things. They don't have to go to a private facility to get training to learn how to move properly to help their career. So I think a lot of the educational tools we could probably do better about let's just narrate the history of the game a little bit.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about, excuse the language here, but it's not sexy, right? But throwing hard is.
You're right.
And so naturally the kids see somebody out there who's throwing hard and they're like, well, yeah, I want to do that. It's like, when they watched Kobe or Shaq or Michael Jordan or LeBron James dunk, they wanted to dunk. It's no different. Bryson DeChambeau golf, I want to hit the ball far. So that I do see this being a challenge. What's interesting is talking about the big league, the major league organizations. The thing that I think everybody needs to just be mindful of is it's more profitable. And this is going to sound funny because, they're obviously investing a lot of money into these draft picks. It's easier though. They recognize that there is a short window of time in which we can maximize somebody's abilities. And so if you're somebody listening to this and you're just assuming that, well, why wouldn't these major league organizations care about this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they don't care, because I think on some level, sure, if we knew that this actually was going to work and this player would be just as good and they would last longer, of course we want to do that because we're going to save money. But what that looks like in practice is something totally different. And a lot of these teams are more interested in like, yeah, I don't have time. Like, look, we've got 70 guys, just deal with it. Let's get the most out of them. And then when they're done, they're done. And then we have another group coming in and they're going to take over. And so what has your experience been like? I'm imagining you're having conversations or have talked to MLB organizations. How have those gone?
Well, listen, you just described the exact value proposition of why my involvement in the USPBL has had success, and then why my lack of involvement in MLB organizations has like been non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's really that simple.
Mind-boggling.
It's like, we know that the problem exists. We would love to be able to do it and have pitchers sustain and get more value out of them, longer careers, but we'd have to pay them. Yeah, eventually, but you're still going to get more out of them. It's because it's a lot to bite off, because it's philosophical different. And it's not different like I'm coming out of left field with something. But when you've been saturated with like an ecosystem of training and people who are doing things a certain way, you just have to probably disrupt it. And that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very simple, right? I do. I mean, I think it's one of the simplest things we can do. But I'm not in a leadership position in an MLB organization to make that call. Someone would have to say, you know what? Let's take 2 or 3 years with, what I always propose, and I can't get in the door, and I'm okay with it, right? But what I've always proposed is every year, you've got guys coming back from arm injury, surgery, guys who are inconsistent. They're on their way out. Give me a group of 12 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you. Backfield, field 100, right? Let's get to work. Let me show you, because we already have the TrackMan data. We already have the medical history. Give it a year. Watch what happens. It's like a little bit of a small study, because I've done a lot of small studies over the years. But if I do it and become successful with it, then what does that mean for the rest of everybody in the organization? That's probably the question internally. But for me, it's like, okay, well, I can't do it there. I'll do it somewhere else. We've done it before at the USPBL, right? Now I'm just like I did with the biomechanics, I'm now going to quantify what we call a traditional starter back into what we call a primary starter now. I'm going to show everybody how to do it, and I'm going to narrate it, right? Because it's like, we can still do it if the structure changes. And to me, like we talk about all the time, player first. And the biggest thing we can give our player, time. Like, hey, look, if you want to learn, you want to be able to ask some questions, we'll give you the time to work it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, we can track that and we can see what happens. We know where we're going. We know it can work. And it's just about, let's, at this day, 2026, let's put it out there, and we have more resources now than ever to put it out and narrate it. So we got to show the industry, but I think overall, like, I have some things in the work I kind of can't talk about, but at the end of the day, from like my individual meetings with MLB organizations over the year, meetings go great, nothing ever happens.
Of course. I do believe, I mean, on some level, this is going to be, you're going to figure this out at some point with MLB. Like that's just inevitable, right? And I think maybe it requires the USPBL, which I do want to kind of get into right now, that continuing to flourish and there just being a larger sample size of guys coming through there.
Sure.
And all of a sudden it's like, well, we wrote this guy off and now he's coming back and he's better than ever and he's healthy. And
yeah.
So talk a little bit about the USPBL. What is it?
Yep.
And why you're involved and what's the plan for it?
Sure. So USPBL, 4-team league that started back in 2016 with the mission of being kind of a finishing school for players, primarily college seniors that were, overlooked, not scouted, and we give them a home. And our goal is to help refine their skill sets, market them, hopefully give them an opportunity to sign with the MLB organization. So through the first 10 years, 52 players have signed with an MLB organization, 7 of which have made it up to the big leagues. So there's success there. There's definitely a niche of an environment to which can be conducive for players that otherwise are on the last stop. And I say that all the time. I mean, we're literally like the last stop on the train.
Yeah.
So a lot of our guys that come there know that they have to make some adjustment to get better. But the structure, it goes back to, I always talk about that. It's 3 to 4 games per week, all in the same stadium. So all teams play in the same stadium, UWM field, and the other days are purely reserved for skill. Okay. And as you know, as like a player, it's like if I show up to the ballpark and I don't have to be available that night and I'm not thinking about like, all right, I just got to get prepared for the game, man, I can like open my mind up to like trying some things. The challenge early was, especially with like the teams, if a guy's committing his time, we're showing progress, he's showing commitment, even if he goes out in the game and fails, so what? Because we're not about like, we have to win the ball game tonight. Most independent ball is still the same structure. The manager has to win.
Yeah.
The organization wants to put a winning product on the field. We don't care. We want it to be competitive.
No, it's truly developmental.
Truly. I mean, in every word of the sense. I mean, it's like truly developmental. We all believe it. If you don't believe it as a staff member, you can't be on the staff. It's that simple, right? So we're a culture that communicates the same values amongst all teams. Because what we say, we're one team. We just happen to wear 4 different uniforms, right? But at the end of the day, it's a learning environment. We still want it to be highly competitive.
Yeah.
Right? We want to put a great product on the field. But the way we communicate, the way that we like embrace the players is significantly different. And eventually they're like, wow, this is a different environment. So they feel at home, right? And then once we get that trust level, we can make our results. And that's the beauty of it. And I think that like that environment has been created. I think they did a great job with the concept initially. I was there in 2016 to build that throwing program. Coming off from the study I did it for position players and pitchers. We had a lot of success. But I think the other thing too is it goes back to training. When I showed up there, I never talked about performance, pitch metrics, velocity, nothing. All I did was put in a structure of a throwing program built about soreness, recovery, repeatability. And what we saw was when players who were at risk, right? And let's just do a hypothetical. They would throw 60 pitches in the game. We would see, as soon as the game's over, 1 day after, 2 days after, 3 days after, we would track what happens at the shoulder joint every day. And then we quantified that back to the delivery. Well, eventually, when we started to make adjustments in delivery, we would still track the shoulder. And then we started to see these changes, right? Better range of motion, better recovery. Guess what the guy feels? Better. I feel more confident. All of a sudden the results change. But then as a byproduct of it all, velocity changes, spin changes, movement changes. But like you said, that approach is not sexy. I can't really like put that on a billboard because I have to have a little bit of time to prove it out, to do it. But then the players, they feel it, they do it. And then it becomes like a herd, man. And it goes. But that's kind of how it works, right?
Yeah.
And so I got involved back in the league last July because we always wanted to help get players signed. And the ownership group said, Justin, would you willing to take a look at the league and the players and help us sign some more players? And I just can't snap my fingers, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
It's
Yeah.
different. And the industry has changed since I
Mhm.
left in 2021. But I said, okay. And I went back in and I looked at it and evaluated it. And because it means a lot to me, I was there from the beginning. Ownership group is great. Fans are great. Host families, chaplains, everybody. And it's like a great family. So I said, well, let me do my part to help again. And they've just gotten back to the basics. It goes back to structure. It goes back to time. And let's get back to work. And so that's what it is. So right now we're acquiring players. We're setting the expectation of our motto is who's next, right? Who's going to be the next player to step up, get signed, take the torch, give like this pathway for the next player. And that's kind of how we go about it.
I love this. The thing that's coming to mind as I'm hearing you talk about the USPBL, and I'm thinking about it in the standpoint of like the Major League Baseball as well, is incentives, right?
Mhm.
What are Major League Baseball's incentives when they develop players? How do I maximize what this is, right? This faceless human being who just happens to wear our uniform.
Mhm.
How do I maximize his abilities as quickly as possible? And on some level, sure, as long as possible, but as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And let me completely, for lack of a better term, drain the value out of that while he's with us.
Yeah.
When I drain the value, then I'll move on to the next guy.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, it's like you're getting this value always, because the minute this guy drops off, you're just going to replace him with somebody else and you're going to continue getting better and better and better. So the incentive for Major League Baseball is really, it's not aligned with what's best for the players.
That's right.
Right? The incentive for the USPBL, from what I'm hearing, actually is.
Mhm.
And so the sexiness that is Major League Baseball, in the long run, I do feel like there is something here with this, being aligned. I mean, it's the name of my company, but like being aligned with what is best for the players. I think it's a matter of continuing to build just the examples, the use cases. Look at all of these guys. And, the fact that you guys have even had 7 guys get to the big leagues in that short amount of time is pretty impressive, because I know how it is when you get guys who maybe they got drafted and they go to independent ball. Like, that is not an exciting thing to do for any one of these guys, right? And so you're getting guys who aren't even drafted, it sounds like. They're just these college seniors who go into this league and are probably willing to do whatever it takes. When you guys work with these individual players, that developmental plan, I know you talked a little bit about earlier, like it's after a conversation. But are you literally communicating and having a conversation with every individual player and then crafting this plan? Or is it, how does that work?
It's all part of the onboarding. We have essentially, as a business, when you want to communicate with a player, you have to communicate what the expectations of our league are, how it works, how it flows, how you would eventually get to the next step, right? And if we don't communicate those things up front, then when a player arrives, well, it could be just like any other independent ball league, right?
Yeah.
So once he arrives, that's where then we do what I call like the garage sale, which is basically like, let's get everything out. Let's understand what you've been doing. And then for us, let's put what we need back in the garage is going to help you get to the next level. Let's get rid of that stuff. It's cluttering you up. Again, no one who's ever had success in our league, that part has to occur. That conversation up front, we have to invest our time to make sure it happens before they put the uniform on to start playing. And once it does, it just kind of snowballs, right? But we have to be able to do that from like our player standpoint, our modeling standpoint, to have any shot of success, because we can't pay what other places are paying.
No, of course.
We can't. And so what we say is, this is not some like, let's get $3,000 and you're going to get, 4 bats a game and your innings and just hopefully that your stats stand up. This is not what it is. It's an opportunity to understand and look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, what's led me to this point? And what do I really need to do? And we have to build trust. But it's just like I said yesterday in our staff meeting. If we don't execute and we don't follow through for the player and show that, yeah, you actually are getting signed, this is a pathway. We're just like anybody. Well, it's a great place to play, but yeah, they really can't get guys signed. We have to follow through.
Yeah.
So now going into 2026 season, we have to do it. And that's it. It's like any business. We have to succeed in what our mission is and what we used to do, and we got to get back to it.
So are you actually responsible for getting guys signed to?
Yes.
So you're like an agent on some level.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, my job is to, I'd say, I need to tell your story,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let me know what's happening with you,
Yeah.
and how can I help you? The guy that was a D2 player that had a 7 ERA, and he comes in, he has a 1.4 ERA, and all of a sudden he's like doing great. Why? Let me tell the why.
Mm.
You don't have to, but let me tell you. And the other part of it is too, is like when I speak to organizations or scouts, I don't just put somebody on a list that they're ready to be signed because their TrackMan data says so,
Yeah.
or they hit in 350. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what kind of guy is he? Is he respectful? What kind of teammate is he? Is he have the aptitude to actually play in a ball tomorrow night? Could he be a big leaguer? These are the things that we got to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is a respect back to the scout and the organization. Like, we may have 1 or 2 guys a year that go on there. Sometimes we might have 5, but it's not never like 10, 15, 20.
Right.
Then I'm just like,
Yeah, you're not
you
just
got me
emailing a
fool.
long list and saying, here's all the guys that are ready to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes
right.
sense. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about DVS.
Sure.
What is it, and what's like the mission of it?
Yeah, so DVS started at the conclusion of that study. I coined it DVS because it stands for Delivery Value System. That was my, acronym or terminology for how to put a name on this biomechanics model. And I really didn't know as a company standpoint what we're going to do with it, other than like, let's form an LLC. We have this thing that we think could really help baseball, and let's start it. And so this was 2015. And so when I went up to Michigan in 2016, I started to say, well, look, what we do is we assign a score to a delivery. Okay, it goes 0 to 24. And what we're trying to do is quantify the delivery very simplistically, right? I think biomechanics, any type of technology, like if you want to get into how sophisticated it is and how many data points and where we measure from, the reliability, that's cool, But again, our model is not built off a lab. I wanted to know what Tom Glavine did.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what these pitchers who couldn't get hooked up to a golf ball and at the time and figure out what was going on. I had to be able to quantify it differently. So that's where I started with the score. And the whole mission of it was, let's provide this information to extend a pitcher's career. And if you do that, then you also simultaneously giving value back to whether it's a high school team, the college team, or the organization. It's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
You're getting the value out of this player for a longer period of time. You're just eliminating the potential roadblock. But as it's evolved, it's become just as much as an educational tool as it is a diagnostic tool. But for us, we've gotten to the point now where a lot of our focus has become on the youth market, right? Because it's like, well, if they're chasing performance, let's at least have that first point of entry, which is, we like to say, well, what's your score? And what we've done now is we've been able to offer what for us is like a 2-camera kit, right? It's 2 GoPros, tripods, a little remote, high school coach, little league organization can use these things for very low investment to start having these conversations. Right? There's no reason why any 12, 13, 14-year-old pitcher should be paying $500 for some biomechanical analysis. It's just ludicrous, right? But if we can have this like coherence of information that's passed down, right? Our job is to provide the information. Our job is to provide the solution, right? So the solution piece is your score of 12. Here's the report, right? And I should back up one second. With the cameras, like that gives us the ability to have quality video, right? From 2 angles, to then that person can take that video, put it in our software, and produce a result in 3 minutes of the score.
Okay.
Right? They have the score, they have the results. Let's have the conversation. It goes back to what I was telling you before. If we don't have that conversation about the score the first time, that score means nothing for them. Why does my score matter? Well, let's talk about how the score recreated. How is it built off now 4,000 pitchers in an injury risk database? How does it compare to our youth scores? And one thing I'll tell you is crazy for like, people who are really trying to understand this. movements, okay, within the game don't necessarily deviate that much as you think. Everybody looks a little bit different, they have a little speed, a little bit longer. But when we start to quantify the delivery, the average DVS score of an MLB pitcher is around 14. Now, the higher the score, the better.
Okay.
0 to
I was
24.
going to ask that. Yeah.
Okay. So higher the score, less risk, throw to throw on the joint. And obviously, the lower the score, the more arm injury risk.
Who's like the highest score if you watch?
The highest score we've ever given was to Warren Spahn. So
was that 24?
22.
22. Okay.
We've never given 24.
Okay.
It's a unicorn.
I didn't know if 24 was like this particular pitcher was the best. Got it. 22.
Yeah, 22.
22. That's impressive.
22. So, he set the bar, and then I don't know. Well, listen, we've had 12-year-old kids come in and be at 20. They don't know why they're at 20, but it's possible.
This is brilliant. Okay. So if you're a family out there and you're like, look, I'm terrified that my son is potentially doing the wrong things. We have no direction. They're just telling us to do this, and they're saying it's for this reason. It doesn't make sense to me. I want more information. How do they reach out to you?
Easiest way, just go to the website, dvsbaseball.com.
Okay.
As soon as you go to the page, there's like a player button, and then there's a facilities organization button. So if you want to administer and deliver scores to your players, there's like a little pathway to do it. If you're a player, just want to like learn how to get my score and how to develop, there's a pathway to do it too.
Got it. And so they sign up, they purchase these cameras, the cameras come to them, they have directions on how to do it all.
Yeah,
this is
it's
great.
Complete onboarding. I mean, we're a company that's, I could probably, go and have like the sexy stuff on the billboards and advertise it and market that way, but I just try to stick what's right by the player. And increasingly, it was important. Now, we don't necessarily have Major League Baseball or an MLB organization on there, right? But we were able to kind of get all the different levels of baseball in the business so far. So little leagues, travel organizations, high schools, facilities, colleges, and we obviously the USPBL, right?
Yeah.
But what we know is instead of everybody trying to come to DVS to get their score, it's like, no, go in your community. Like to be able to go into your little league that offers this is huge, right? And it's like I was up in Newton, Massachusetts in November, and they have the ability to do this, right? And it's like, well, yeah, why not?
Is it at a facility in Newton that has the ability to do it, or?
Yeah, they can do it anywhere they want on their little league fields. So since they have the kit, they can film at practices, indoors, anytime they want, right? And it's just like, it takes 5 minutes to set up and you start to administer the information. And that's the goal. It's like we want a community of people who want to do right by the pitchers. It's still them doing it, right? It's still their relationships. We're not fostering those relationships. We're just providing the technology to have a conversation earlier than later now, to just say, well, here's this information. This is what you should know about as you go in your journey. And this is a building block.
Right.
This is like the pyramid. It always starts at the base, right? So we see this as like a educational tool. You always go from first grade to second grade to third grade. You got to build upon your education. So we see this as like kind of a necessary first step if you're going to start advertising some high performance pitching program.
I can tell that you're in this for the right reasons, right? I sense it from you based on what you're telling me, based on the investment. Nobody gets into this at this level if they really didn't want to make a difference. No one is spending time in a league for college seniors,
right? If
they didn't really care about this. Have you found anybody in college, various college programs that are like-minded and believe in a lot of the same stuff and are really trying to do it differently?
I mean, not offhand. I think from my conversations that I think everyone faces some sort of fork in the road, right? Like if you're in college, increasingly, the time to develop players and get like the buy-in to then by the time that they're juniors or like dudes, right? And build that legitimacy. That does take time. But increasingly now with like a portal, like I'm forced to recruit, navigate the portal, get the guy that gets the best shot to win because my job depends on it. And with guys going from, mid-majors to power fives, and then once I get to the power fives, I got to keep it. That business model of thinking doesn't perpetuate that I got to keep investing what's right by the player. it's a tough cycle. So a guy who's like has all the good intentions eventually probably has to choose because, well, I've been grounded as a volunteer. I got a fiance. Like I got to start making some money. Like I got to choose. And so for me, it's like, well, I choose this because I've seen it. I believe in it. I mean, much to my wife's chagrin, sometimes it's like, I'm passionate about it. I know it works. If it didn't work, I'd have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah. When I do again, and I bring it back, this is part of your story. If you're sitting here today trying to tell me this and you never got injured, never had surgery, was a Cy Young winner, I'd be like, and you just know differently because you've studied it. It doesn't feel the same, right?
Yeah.
Like your career on some level was derailed because of this exact thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why part two, like it goes back to like why I did the case study. I relate to those guys. I was in their shoes. I still see a ton of guys get hurt, career not fulfilled. That they're dealing with a lot of stuff underneath the hood, right? Like whether you're 5 year removed from your career or not, there's a lot of stuff there. A lot of guys struggle. I don't struggle with any aspect of my playing career anymore because the information I put together, it made sense. It's like, oh, okay, it's logical for me because I could say that I did what I knew in my power at the time to put my best effort in my career. It's just I was going to run up against that wall.
Yeah,
we all get hurt, and the goalpost should never be 10-year Hall of Fame career. It's like the goalpost is, hey, look, you had the ability to get to the league. If you had 2 years in the league, awesome. If you had 1 year, if you had 10 years, awesome. But that injury, that's really a manifestation now of kind of the culture.
Yeah.
Well, at 25, you kind of now know. But at 19, 20, when you're getting close to that draft, you don't want to know. It's like, I think that's hard too. Like, I think back when I was 21, 22, it's like, hey, Duff, like, by the way, I was a DVS score of 7.
Oh.
Yeah. So I get back and look at my VCU
Hold
footage.
on, before surgery or after?
Before surgery.
What would you get to after?
Oh, I'm like, well, I could go anywhere from like a 17 to 20.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the whole thing of it is, I think where I differ is, a lot of guys can talk about like force and, all these different metrics. And I'm like, well, I know how that feels on the body.
Sure.
I can do it. Right. And I can communicate it and I can do it differently. If you want me to throw, submarine, I'll do it. You want me to throw over the top? I can contort my body to do it and show it. And all the metrics change, and it's like the technology now. You want to talk to me about arm speed and work on my elbow. Well, that's cool, but it doesn't come from just the arm accelerating. It comes back from the ground first and how that eventually manifests. And it's like, well, I can demo it so many different ways and I feel it different ways, but I have the ability to do it because I played. Athletic guy. Like I can do those things. And then I can communicate it back to a player.
Right.
I think that part is hard for a lot of like newer coaches because they've been so caught up in the data.
Oh yeah.
It's like, if you can't play catch at a high level, oh, you don't know what a high level playing catch is? Let me show you.
Yep.
And, I'm still young enough where I can do that and I want to keep doing it. So I got to kind of get my arm back and my body going again so I can do those things. Because if I don't go out in the field and play catch with guys, I don't care that like I'm the head of the USPBL, like I make decisions. I'm going to be out there, in my turfs and throwing.
Thought experiment for us real fast. You have a player and on the right, you have a pitching coach who's saying, I can make you throw 100. Look at this guy who I just did it to. And a guy on the left saying, I could keep you healthy. Look at the guy that I just did it to. That player is probably saying, I'm going to go to the guy that's going to help me throw 100.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of the problem.
It's part of the problem. And they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
True.
And I think, it goes back to, you were saying something earlier about the industry, right? And I've been asked multiple times, like, what's the fastest way to fix this thing?
Right.
It's like, how do we fix this injury thing? And I said, well, I hope and pray that like Paul Skeens can stay healthy for like 10 years. It's great for baseball, right? But what I do know is if we had 1, 2, 3, 4 guys that delivery wise, I'll use obviously the DVS scale, right? 16 to 20, because I could be a Kershaw, I could be a Mariano Rivera, I could be a Cliff Lee, I could be a Justin Verlander. All guys had DVS scores over 16. Go look at their careers, right? They all look a little different too.
Mm-hmm.
But guy that embraces some of these qualities and just starts to do it. He's throwing 95, right? He's putting up results year after year. Those are guys that are going to move the needle, but they have to talk about it. It can't be the same regurgitation of what's going on.
Right.
So if a guy gets up on the mound, he looks different. Maybe he even looks old school with a big windup and he's just dealing and then he's healthy for 2 or 3 years, he'll change the game.
Right. I agree.
He'll be like, no, well, how does he do it? This is how I do it. I don't pick up a weighted ball. I don't long toss.
Yep.
Like I use the mound.
You need a guy who shows everybody this is how it can be done.
That's how it can be done.
And yeah, that guy to the younger generation, everybody says, well, if he did it, so can I.
That is exactly right.
Well, buddy, this is great. I feel like we have more of these coming. This conversation could go on for 3 hours, but I appreciate it. Again, tell everybody how they could find you.
Easiest way to find me, dvsbaseball.com, right? Everything that from our player development side, from diagnostic with what we call DVS X-ray, which is the software application, the markerless biomechanics, to see the DVS scores, it's all there. But dvsbaseball.com, and whether you're little league, high school, travel organization, you want to get involved, that's it.
And you talked about the study. You posted it on Twitter. What's your handle for everybody?
At Justin-Orenduff.
Perfect. All right, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Yeah.